Hi, I'm Summer Tothill, and every week on my Instagram I run a Q&A with my followers. They ask me their questions about how gender equality and oppression is affecting them in their world, and I answer. What you're about to watch or listen to is a compilation of 1 week's worth of those questions and answers. If you join me on Instagram every week, you can take part in the Q&A, ask your own questions, get your answers, get involved. What are your thoughts on prenups? I'm quite tempted to say just don't get married and you won't have to worry about this. So prenups are tricky, and so are the economic inequalities between men and women. Now, I am by no means an expert on prenups or family law, divorce law, asset division or finances, but here are some things that I do know. More than half of marriages in Australia end in divorce. So according to divorce lawyers and financial advisors, prenups are essential. But prenups can also be really detrimental to the less wealthy spouse or the spouse who does the most house and domestic labor while earning the least money. So when you go into marriage, you have to be very clear-headed about the limits of romance and also the realities of heterosexual labor dynamics and economic injustices that are almost certain to play out in your marriage too. In Australia, first divorces tend to happen a little over a decade into the marriage, usually when the participants in that marriage are in their late 30s or early 40s. No surprise, that tends to happen around the age that the marriage has produced several children and somebody has been lumped with the vast bulk of the domestic labour while not earning any money for years. Now, imagine being a woman who has been mostly out of the workforce for, let's say, 5 years and entering into a separation with barely enough money to hire the lawyer to fight your husband in that divorce, let alone enough money to set yourself up in a new place. But Summer, our income is shared and I will be able to use our shared husband and wife income to fight the lawyer. Nope, not if he cuts off your access and not if you are separated and not working while the divorce is going through. As a woman, you have to try and set yourself up before marriage not to get screwed over financially, but a prenup is not necessarily a guarantee. Prenups are often characterized as ways for already rich men to stop their wives from making off with all their money in the divorce. But why shouldn't the wife who's doing all the domestic and caring labor that facilitates the husband's life and career not get to benefit from that? And also, we're making a lot of assumptions about who's got the most potential to earn money in the relationship. I love the Ali Wong example where when she got married, she was a lowly comedian not earning very much, and her husband was, I think, like a surgeon or a doctor whose parents insisted that they get a prenup to protect his assets. Of course, since then, she has become a wildly successful and famous comedian who has way more money than him, but because the prenup stipulates that they don't have to share it, she's getting out of their divorce pretty well off, I should think. So prenups can be protective and they can create some ace dramatic irony, but prenups can have some drawbacks, which I will now go into. A prenup could indicate that the higher earning spouse only shares so much and not take into consideration that the other spouse is raising kids, working part-time, doing all the housework, and they could potentially get screwed over. Or, for example, if you're contributing to the success of your spouse's business, but the prenup had stated that you have no claim to any part of that business, you could lose any fruits of your labour in the event of divorce. And this is emblematic of a blanket rule, a rule that I would love women to adopt in their lives. Do not ever financially contribute to something that you will not own, that will not be your asset in the end. For example, don't spend your own money to improve any of the permanent features of a home that you rent. You are just improving the value of someone else's asset. Don't spend any of your own money acquiring anything or getting anything done for your workplace if you don't own that business. The business can write these things off as a business expense and get a tax break. You will not. That money could be sitting in your bank account earning interest for you. And similarly, do not sink any of your money into a man or into a relationship where any ultimate fruits of that labor and assets will not belong to you. So prenups, yes or no? I think I've communicated that it's quite complicated. You should definitely seek professional advice to your individual circumstances, but I hope at least I've given you some things to think about in making that decision. Are straight male escorts good for feminism or not? I think it's great for a woman to get to experience what it's like for a man to prioritise her sexual satisfaction and do emotional labour for her. So what's not to like? I don't know that straight male sex workers have much to do with feminism or not to do with feminism, to be honest. Anything that people want can be commodified and bought and sold. And as long as sex is something that people want and is something that they sometimes can't get or don't want to get in an organic way, as it were, it will be available. And since women want sex, straight women want sex, there will be straight male sex workers to fulfill that gap. And that's fine by me. And I think it's great for women to be able to satisfy their natural sexual needs in a way that is on their own time, where the terms and conditions are very clear and it's very structured. And while there's no guarantee of safety, a sex worker who comes with recommendations can be a lot safer for women than hooking up with some random man. Straight male sex workers don't tend to turn a great deal of trade, by the way. They tend to not be super successful. For starters, sex workers are really expensive and women have got that whole gender pay gap issue to deal with. Straight women don't hire male sex workers less because we want sex less, because that is absolutely not true. It's because it is more stigmatized for women to seek sex outside of the context of an established relationship. And also because it's not usually necessary for us to have to pay money for sex with men. Straight men just don't have the same safety and stigmatization concerns around sex, so they are able to offer sex to women pretty much all the time for free, unless you count the emotional labor and audacity tax. How do we get younger women to see the raw deal that is marriage before they do it? Well, you could just get them to follow me on Instagram and TikTok. Just kidding. As I often say in these situations when you're trying to get someone to understand a different point of view or change their mind on something, really what you need to do is ask them some more probing questions about what their beliefs actually are and what their assumptions are, because you may find that interrogating this a little bit better can hold the key to understanding which thread you can pull. Ask them what it is that they think marriage involves. Ask them what appeals to them about marriage and how they think marriage is going to benefit them. Ask them what they think a husband should bring to a marriage and what they think a wife should bring to a marriage, and if they see any inequalities when they think about that a bit more. And if you are reasonably cognizant, well-educated or confident about what the history of heterosexual marriage is and what the current reality of heterosexual marriage is, you can use this line of questioning as an opportunity to then disabuse a young woman of her assumptions about what it actually is and what it is going to involve. Young women especially get fed this narrative that marriage is the final stage of adulthood, that it will confer social status, that it is the ultimate expression of romance, and that being picked or favoured by a man is the best validation of their existence on the planet. And none of these things is true. Heterosexual marriage, in addition to de facto domestic cohabitation with a man, tricks women into facilitating men's domestic and social success. Women do this by performing most of the domestic and caring labour around those men, while gradually dismantling the scaffolding of the things that were actually empowering them as women. Marriage removes women's names and, in large part, their identities. Marriage forces women to maintain the emotional health of one man, usually without reciprocation, at the expense of prioritising a healthy, emotionally supportive group of close friends. Marriage makes it harder to leave in the event of the relationship turning sour or if there is abuse. Marriage can have unexpected financial and tax-related consequences. For example, in the USA, if you get married to someone, you get saddled with their debt regardless of whether you were involved in accruing that debt or if you even knew that it was happening. On that note, marriage means tying your health and safety to someone else who you might think you can trust now, but in the future could really endanger your well-being. And marriage statistically improves men's health and happiness while diminishing women's well-being. So hopefully you can make a good case against it now. how to meet my sexual needs with an actual man involved and not get treated like dirt. You just gotta hire a sex worker, babe. It's the only way. That's it for this Q&A. Thank you so much for listening. Do you love exclusive content that's just for you and to sticky beak inside other people's lives? If so, please consider subscribing to my Instagram. Your subscription to my Instagram is less than $5 a month, and that gets you guaranteed answers in the weekly Q&A, which is absolutely not the case for non-subscribers. It also gets you subscriber-only content and a peek inside my life. I do not share on my public Instagram really anything about my personal life, but subscribers get a peek under the hood how I live, laugh, lol in a feminist way. But personally, my favorite thing is the guaranteed answers in the Q&As. I love being able to tell my subscribers that any question they ask me every week will absolutely get answered. So go to my Instagram and hit the subscribe button. Find me on Instagram at summertothill, that's summer with an O, spelt the same way as you see in this YouTube channel. I can't wait to see you there.